We're coming to you from Singapore. We're two journalists who haven't been able to stop talking about this story since we both watched it on Netflix, the incredible documentary Con Mom. Well, Con Mom has been caught right here in Singapore.
That's right, Michelle. Dionne Marie Hanna. She's 84 years old, and she was taken into custody just this past week here in Singapore for essentially committing the same sort of crime that was documented in the Netflix documentary. Absolutely unbelievable.
Michael,
Okay.
we were just watching this, and now we're part of the story. It's
Hey,
amazing.
Michelle. We were watching this documentary, Con Mom, on Netflix. And the documentary, first off, hats off to the producers and everyone who put this together. We're watching this, and you can't believe as these cons are taking place. And then we find out the woman has been arrested here in Singapore, where we
She's
live.
been arrested. Yes, Dionne Marie Hanna, 84, the British national at the center of the Netflix true crime Con Mom, who the moment I saw her on screen, I said to myself, she looks so Asian. Her accent sounds so Malaysian. It's so familiar in this region. Well, she's appeared in our courts. It's the 6th of April as we record this. She appeared in Singapore state courts yesterday via video link. Apparently, she was video linked in from her hospital bed. What struck me was she had no representation. Yeah, Michael, did you see that?
I did, yeah. I mean, this is a woman who apparently grew up in poverty, but she's had this con going back decades where she says she's the illegitimate daughter of the Sultan of Brunei and is like, has so much wealth because of that, and that she wants to leave that wealth in inheritance to other people. But truth is, she's got nothing really.
I just want to get people up to speed in terms of how she got caught. So the documentary pretty much aired on Netflix here in Singapore March 25th. And 3 days later, police here in Singapore started getting reports from people who had been cheated by her. And what struck me, Michael, is that it doesn't sound like her scams have changed over the years. You know, she's still pretending to have this inheritance that she promises she will pass on to you. She's still passing off as a victim of terminal cancer. And then she waves money around the promise of donations. So she allegedly lied to one of the victims, said that she wanted to donate $3 million to a mosque here, Masjid Khalid, and $2 million to the Mawa Community Service. So it seems like, remember she said to her son Graham when she apologized to him on the phone, she said, "I'm sorry, son, I cannot change." Well, it sounds like her story doesn't change either, or hasn't changed.
I think you hit it right, the nail on the head right there. I mean, Netflix documents that she used the same scam, the same story over and over again. And what we're watching the documentary on Netflix, not only is she scamming this renowned chef, she's scamming all these other people she meets like in his ambit. Or like she'll be sitting in a hotel lobby or a dining room and she'll see somebody walk in and she'll say, "Hey, come on over here. What's your business?" And she'll strike up a conversation. And next thing she'll be saying, "Hey, I'm rich. I want to invest in your company." And this all goes on Netflix, but she's been doing the exact same thing, the same story, saying she's the illegitimate daughter of the Sultan of Brunei, tons of money, terminally ill. I want to leave my money to you, and people go for it because she's. I mean, it just you hear it like that the way I'm telling you, and it sounds like a scam,
Yeah.
but she's kind of convincing.
Well, it's also tried and tested over the years, this story, so I can see why she has no motivation to change it. It's worked so well. It's worked on her own son. I'm amazed, though, that she had no inkling, I guess, of this Netflix documentary that was going to splash her image all around the world. I'm sure that the fact that people here in Singapore could turn Netflix on, see who she was, hear the story of what she'd been doing, that had a big part to play. Anecdotally, at least that's what I think, in terms of people coming forward to the Singapore Police Force. And by the way, yay, Singapore Police Force.
Think about it, Michelle. How many documentaries have you watched where someone is a criminal, they've done something wrong, and then they get caught because of the documentary? I don't think there's that many.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, there really isn't. I mean, but that's the hope of true crime storytelling. If she is convicted, she's 84, but she could be spending the next 20 years in jail if she is convicted of the charge, I believe, is fraud by false representation here in Singapore. So she could be in prison for up to 20 years, face a fine, or, have to go to jail and face a fine.
Yeah, I mean, odds are that she's going to spend the rest of her life in a prison here in Singapore, and it wouldn't surprise me if charges are raised against her in other jurisdictions as well, because she has been cheating people around the world.
This is true. Yeah. Um, when we watched that documentary, I was struck by how many so-called authority figures seem to be in her ambit. The bankers in Switzerland, or just I think she also had lawyers, as Sun mentioned. But right when she most needs a lawyer, when she's been charged here in Singapore, there wasn't one by her side. You
So
have
her
to
next,
wonder, like, how little money did she have at this point in time? Was she living scam to scam?
hmm, yeah, for sure. Her next court appearance is on April 11th, so that's not that
Hmm.
far out. It's less than a week or so. So we'll find out whether she ends up finding a lawyer between now and then. But I'll tell you,
Hmm.
she's going to need a really good one, and I don't know if she can afford it.
So this is 5 cases of cheating that she's facing here in Singapore. The losses are surprisingly small compared to what her son went through. I think he lost, Graham, from what I remember of the documentary, about 300,000 pounds. That's the
Hmm.
equivalent of about $500,000 Sing dollars. And right now, she's been caught. She's been handed 5 counts of fraud, and the charges amount to about 200,000 Sing dollars. So a far smaller amount.
I mean, the other thing which is interesting, right, is this woman clearly has a taste for the high life and living in nice hotels. Soon after she met Graham in the documentary, she said, I want to come to London and visit you. And she stays in the top hotels in big suites, drinking expensive champagne, caviar, you name it, right? And then here in
Mhm.
Singapore, she's caught at the Grand Hyatt. So again, she's going to a nice hotel, repeating this sort of same scam, if you will, living off people, saying, giving the impression she has money, but in the end, they have to foot the bill.
Yeah, that's right. She would meet her victims at Grand Hyatt, as we know, is a beautiful hotel off Scotts Road. Um, and yet she's had a stint at, the far humbler Tan Tock Seng Hospital, where she will be remanded, I believe, after her discharge at Tan Tock Seng for about a week. And then after that, her case will be mentioned again April 11th, and then it might be hospital or jail, I guess.
Michelle, let me ask you a question. I mean, in the documentary, right, there was only one character we saw, a friend of
Mm.
Graham's, who did not get taken in by her, right? So she was showing him expensive properties, saying, I want to buy you a property. But the first time in the documentary that we saw, at least, that she asked him for money, he's like,
Mhm.
I'm out of here. So my question is, and it's not really fair, but do you think you would have been taken in by her?
Absolutely. I think what the documentary said to me was anybody can be scammed. Anybody. And the scammer could look like anybody. There is no typical face for evil, right? Or utter manipulation. 84-year-old, she looks cuddly. She looks harmless. She looks maternal. Until you hear some of the, I think, conversation that she has with Graham's wife, and then you hear for me, the real malice, and that to me signaled, oh, there's something else going on here with this woman. Early on in the documentary, where we didn't know the full extent, of course, of the double life she was living. But yeah, I think I definitely would have been taken in. And so I just for the listener, I talk about money every single day. I've created a talk show that has gone to #1 on Spotify for investing in Singapore. And so I talk about money every day. And when we talk about investment scams, they're few and far between here in Singapore, but they've been increasing, in my opinion.
I'll tell you one of the things that struck me about her is I would have gone into this thinking someone who is behind a scam like would want to stay out of the photos, would not want to be in any videos, would not want to have her face out there. But she was photographed so many times. There are all these photos of her hugging Graham, hugging other people. She had no fear of being out there. And actually, I think that's what led to her being caught.
Yeah, and I think to some extent, maybe she just wasn't aware of the speed at which the your image can be disseminated these days with YouTube and Netflix. I mean,
Hmm.
if you're on Netflix, it doesn't take long for the whole world to know your name and your face, right?
I mean, there was something that came up as a detail in the documentary where a long time ago, she actually did do time in jail for fraud. I
Oh,
think that was
really?
around the time that, Graham was quite young when, he disappeared from her life. Maybe it was around the time he was born. I'm not sure. But there was a newspaper article that they came up with that said she had, I think, gone to prison. But that comes to your point about today's day and age where the information travels much faster. I mean, from that time, whenever it was, 40 years ago, it got buried. She was able to kind of outrun her past. But I'll tell you,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen this time.
And I'm sure as the story unfolds, we're going to hear more about the three people who were defrauded here in Singapore, who went to report what they had experienced with the Singapore police force that led to her arrest here in Singapore, and hear more details about these investment opportunities and inheritance entitlements that she was dangling once again to them,
No,
you know.
yeah, no doubt about it. And she kept using this sort of like she built a rapport with someone and say, I'm gonna invest in you, I'm gonna leave this inheritance for you. But
Mm.
right now, would you buy me a fur jacket? And when I say it like that, it's kind of like it's just like it's a bit flippant, and you think no one's gonna go for it. But I mean, culturally, people thought, okay, you're giving to me, I need to give something to you, and we heard that over and over again. And she just used that same ploy again and again.
Yeah, and apparently what came up in the reports that I'm reading is that she deceived somebody and said she needed the money to pay for a shopping spree in France. So as late as February this year, Con Mom was shopping in France. Isn't that
Yeah,
amazing? I mean, you think after your son realizes that you are a fraud, you think maybe you'd scale it down a little bit and cut back on the shopping, but no.
no,
She has high
definitely not.
taste. I mean, I'll give her that much. I mean, she likes shopping and she likes major cities. Also, you think maybe you'd lie low um, in some remote corner of the world, but that wasn't what she was doing. So I want to tell you a little bit about how she cheated her victims here in Singapore. The victims were asked to transfer money for legal fees and the opening of overseas bank accounts. And in return, they got the promise that they would be reimbursed, of course, from this inheritance that she would bequeath on them.
Yeah. Michelle, I want to pick up on something you said a little bit earlier. And this is something that I don't think other people are talking about, but I know you
Okay.
have a background in psychotherapy and you picked up on it right away, which is when she was conversing with people who started to distrust her, she went mean right away. She would say, things like, I don't like the way you're treating me, or stay away from her. And it's almost like she was bipolar or something was going on. And then there'd always be these days where, she wouldn't get out of bed. And the story was, well, that was her ill health because she was supposedly dying from cancer, but maybe something else was going on. Maybe she was actually depressed at the same time that she was pulling off these scams. Well, what do you think?
I'm, well, I can't diagnose anybody, of course, but it does sound like she fluctuated. I remember hearing about her lying on the couch for periods of time. Graham would see her in the hotel lying on the couch, and then supposedly she would be up drinking champagne with her friends. Um, I don't know whether it is bipolar disorder, which would be sort of an imbalance of brain chemistry that would cause mood swings and sort of a cycle between a depressive and a manic state. But when you heard her talking to Graham's wife, and I think Graham's wife and Graham's son were also the unfortunate victims here, right? And what struck me about the documentary was the generational damage that
Mm,
was being caused. So, Con Mom herself, right? We don't know much about her background, but we know that Graham's father was abusive. Graham said that he punched him, right, at 18, knocked him down. So she attracts into her life an abusive alcoholic. In my mind, she's like a force of destruction. And the unfortunate victims of her coming close to Graham are abandons his family the way he was abandoned by her when he was much younger. He abandons his wife and newborn son for months, right? When he's in Switzerland partying away, waiting for this um, inheritance to come through, but also torn to wanting to spend time with his mom. And then eventually his wife and his son leave him, and they're based in New Zealand now, right? So this generational damage. But, we still have yet to understand a lot of the details of this case. But it's just amazing to me that it's come down, the full stop, at least for the conning, has happened right here in Singapore.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. And whereas Graham's story is now well documented in this documentary Con Mom on Netflix, we don't really know the stories yet of the three people who are filed charges against her here in Singapore. And so, like you, I think I'm looking forward to learning more about them and their stories, and exactly how the impact that these cons have had on them and their families.
I mean, can you imagine being 84 and still at the lies and the deceit? But of course, maybe the
She's got
con becomes so well oiled that it becomes easier and easier as well.
I don't think at this point she knew how to do anything else. This was who she was, who she is, and just doing that same story over and over again. Essentially, it's all she knows.
Well, let's look at one of the victims, Paiman Supayat. And Paiman she told him that she had a terminal illness. She was a member of the Brunei royal family. She wanted to distribute her wealth to him and his son. And then she also lied to him, saying that she would return, of course, the money borrowed. She had borrowed money from him for shopping in France. That happened sometime between Feb 28th and March 10th. And apparently, according to the charge sheet that's in the media, she has no intention of returning the money.
Well, that doesn't surprise me either. And odds are she's probably spent it.
Okay. Some people have actually, on Reddit, there's a lot of chatter about this, and people wonder, hey, why didn't she save some of that money? Why didn't she use some of that money to invest? I don't know if it was really in a toolbox, but who knows, right? It always struck me as weird that in Switzerland, she supposedly was sitting down and chatting with bankers, and literally in this office above a Swiss bank, which sounded like there was some sort of real account that was open there. Otherwise, why on earth were they giving her time of day? So did she have some money stashed away? I don't know.
That's a
Nobody
good
knows it
question.
now.
They didn't give away the name of the bank in the Netflix documentary. We can guess that it was maybe the big Swiss bank that is still around, or the Swiss bank that used to be around that was, merged with the one that's still there. Just a guess, of course. But the thing is, like you said, they basically opened up. They said an office above the bank on a weekend outside of office hours into a beautiful conference room, let her and Graham into it. They were really rolling out the red carpet, if you will. So definitely the bank and the lawyers believed her.
I wonder what Graham thinks of this news that his mom, could be in prison for up to 20 years, that she has been caught. I wonder what is going through his mind right now, and if restitution is part of any of that thought,
And
more the
there she
prospect
goes
of.
again.
Mm-hmm.
There she goes again, and
Yeah.
she's finally got what's coming to her.
Yeah, I think it is about, finally the consequences, right? Finally.
And he said, he
But
stopped calling her mom. He started calling her Dionne instead of mom, at least in his own mind, because he thought, how could any mom do this to me, do this to her son? So I don't think his heart's gonna be going out to her at all.
this is in my opinion, one of the best documentaries that I have seen in a long while. The way the deception unfolded, because you don't really know that she is a con till later on. But the level of deception, here's a woman who clearly loved the high life more than her son, right? And herself.
Yeah, for sure. And if you haven't seen the Netflix documentary, strongly encourage you to go watch it. It's called Con Mom. And I also encourage everyone to stay tuned to the press and see how this case, or these 3 charges against her here in Singapore, how they turn out.
Yeah. Does Dionne really have cancer? Does she have some savings socked away? Will she face jail time for the rest of her life, at least for the next 20 years? A lot more to figure out. Michael, thanks so much for chatting with me about this. I had to talk to somebody about this.
Always great to talk to you, Michelle.
All right. Bye for now.